In the messy business of moral decision-making, we often rely on gut feelings, tradition, or a set of unwritten rules. We ask ourselves, is this action right or wrong? But what if we could replace this ambiguity with a clear, almost mathematical formula? What if we could calculate the morality of an action by measuring its consequences, and its consequences alone? History has given us a man who believed that such a system was not only possible, but necessary for a just society. A philosopher who declared that the moral universe could be governed by a single, simple principle, the pursuit of happiness. He sought to reduce the chaos of human conduct to a logical, rational calculus. Today, we step into the laboratory of moral philosophy with Jeremy Bentham to discuss his masterpiece, An Introduction to the Principles of Morals and Legislation, and the search for the greatest happiness for the greatest number. Born in London in 1748, Jeremy Bentham was a legal and social reformer who showed intellectual promise from a very early age. He was a child prodigy who read Latin and Greek at the age of 3 and entered Oxford at 12. Though he was trained as a lawyer, he quickly became disillusioned with the English legal system, which he viewed as antiquated and irrational. He dedicated his life to reforming it, and in the process, created a new moral philosophy that would forever change the way we think about ethics and government. Bentham was a prolific writer, though much of his work was not published until after his death. He was a tireless advocate for a wide range of social reforms, including women's rights, animal welfare, and prison reform. He was also a fiercely eccentric figure, known for his unconventional beliefs and his desire to have his body preserved as an auto-icon, a wish that was, in part, fulfilled after his death in 1832. Our conversation today will be centered on Jeremy Bentham's seminal work, An Introduction to the Principles of Morals and Legislation. Published in 1789, this book laid the groundwork for utilitarianism, a philosophical system based on the principle of utility. Bentham's central argument is that all actions should be judged based on their ability to produce happiness or pleasure and to prevent pain or unhappiness. He famously proposed a hedonic calculus, a way to quantitatively measure the amount of pleasure an action could produce. This book is a radical call to rethink law and morality, not through tradition or divine command, but through a straightforward calculation of consequences.
Mr. Bentham, welcome. Your philosophy is built on a single, powerful foundation: the principle of utility. What exactly is this principle?
The principle of utility states that an action is right if it produces happiness and wrong if it produces pain. By utility, I mean that property in any object whereby it tends to produce benefit, advantage, pleasure, good or happiness, all this in the present case comes to the same thing, or to prevent the happening of mischief, pain, evil, or unhappiness. Nature has placed mankind under the governance of two sovereign masters, pain and pleasure. It is for them alone to point out what we ought to do, as well as to determine what we shall do.
So, a moral action is simply one that produces the most pleasure.
Precisely. The morality of an action is determined by its consequences. If an action leads to the greatest amount of happiness for the greatest number of people, then it is the right action. The number of people is crucial. My goal is not my own happiness, but the aggregate happiness of all who are affected.
This leads to a fascinating concept you proposed: the hedonic calculus. How does this work?
It is a tool for measuring pleasure and pain. We must consider 7 factors: its intensity, its duration, its certainty or uncertainty, its propinquity or remoteness, its fecundity, the chance of it being followed by sensations of the same kind, its purity, the chance of it being followed by sensations of the opposite kind, and its extent, the number of people affected. By weighing these factors, we can determine which action will produce the greatest utility.
But isn't it difficult, if not impossible, to measure pleasure and pain so precisely?
It is not a perfect science, but it is a necessary one. It is a guide for reason. My aim is to move us from the vague, unprincipled chaos of traditional morality to a rational, quantitative system. It is better to have an imperfect scale than to have no scale at all.
You argue that your principles should be applied to law and government. How would a government based on utilitarianism function?
A government based on utility would have one purpose: to pass laws that maximize the total happiness of the community. Laws would be judged not by tradition or abstract justice, but by their practical effect on the well-being of the people. The government would be a kind of moral engineer, building a society that is as happy as possible.
How would you address the criticism that your philosophy could justify a tyranny of the majority, where the pleasure of the many is used to justify the pain of the few?
This is a fair criticism, and it is a point that requires careful consideration. My principle is about maximizing happiness in the aggregate. This implies that we must be careful not to create a system where the intense suffering of a small group is ignored for the benefit of the majority. The law should be designed to prevent this, and my calculus requires us to account for the intensity of pain as well as pleasure.
What is your view on the rights of animals? Are they to be considered in your calculus?
The question is not can they reason, nor is can they talk, but is can they suffer? I believe that animals can suffer, and therefore their pain and pleasure must be considered in our moral calculus. The fact that a being cannot reason does not give us the right to inflict pain upon it. This is a crucial distinction.
You were a strong advocate for prison reform. How did your utilitarian philosophy influence your views on punishment?
Punishment should never be an act of retribution. It should only be used to prevent a greater evil. Its sole purpose should be to deter future crime and to reform the criminal. Punishment is a pain, and it is only justified if it prevents a greater amount of pain. My design for the Panopticon prison was meant to be the most efficient and humane way to reform criminals by creating a system of constant but unseen surveillance.
You were also a champion of women's rights and an early advocate for women's suffrage. What was the basis for this in your philosophy?
The happiness of women is just as important as the happiness of men. The principle of utility demands that we consider the happiness of all individuals, and a society that denies half its population the right to vote or to own property is a society that is denying itself a great amount of happiness. The happiness of women must be considered equally.
You spoke of psychological egoism, the idea that all human action is motivated by self-interest. How can we be truly moral if we are inherently selfish?
My philosophy does not depend on a selfless nature. It is a guide for a rational, self-interested being. We seek our own happiness, but my calculus shows that our greatest happiness can be found in a society where the aggregate happiness of all is maximized. Self-interest, when guided by reason, can lead to the greatest good.
You were a critic of the law of your time. What did you see as its greatest flaw?
The greatest flaw of the law of my time was its irrationality. It was based on tradition and ancient custom, not on the principle of utility. It was a collection of incoherent rules that did not serve the well-being of the people. I believe that the law should be a rational and clear system, designed to produce the greatest happiness for the greatest number.
What is your final message to the modern world, which is still debating how to create a just and happy society?
I would say look at the consequences of your actions, not at their intentions. Be skeptical of those who speak of abstract rights and duties without considering the real-world effects on people's lives. And remember that the purpose of all human endeavor, from law to government to morality, is to create a world where there is more happiness and less suffering. Do what works.
Mr. Bentham, in our time, we use algorithms and data to make decisions for the common good. Do you see these as a modern form of your hedonic calculus, or do they present new dangers?
I would see them as a powerful new tool for my calculus. The ability to collect and analyze vast amounts of data on human behavior could, in theory, allow us to create a society that is more efficient, more just, and more happy. However, I would also warn of a great danger. An algorithm has no conscience. It cannot feel pain or pleasure. If it is not guided by a moral philosophy, it can become a tool for a new kind of tyranny, a tyranny of pure efficiency without a soul. It is up to you to ensure that your tools are guided by the principle of utility and not by a blind faith in data.
If you were alive today, what would be your perspective on the debates surrounding the moral status of artificial intelligence? Do these machines, which can now perform complex calculations, have a right to be considered in our moral calculus?
My answer would be consistent with my principles. The question is not can they think, but can they suffer? The evidence suggests that a machine, however intelligent, does not possess the capacity for pleasure or pain. Therefore, it has no moral status. It is a tool. It is the consequences of our actions on other human beings and animals that must be considered. The machine is not an end in itself, it is a means to an end, and it is up to us to ensure that it is used to maximize the aggregate happiness of all beings who can suffer.
Closing reflections and summary. And so our time with Jeremy Bentham comes to an end. His philosophy is both breathtakingly simple and profoundly radical. He challenged us to abandon the traditions of the past and to judge our actions based on a single rational criterion, their ability to produce happiness. His vision of a moral calculus, while perhaps impossible to apply with perfect precision, gave us a powerful new framework for thinking about ethics and public policy. Bentham's legacy is a constant presence in modern society, from economic theory to public health policy. He reminds us that the purpose of all human systems is to serve the well-being of the people they affect. His work is a powerful call to move beyond abstract ideals and to focus on the tangible, measurable outcomes that truly matter. Thank you for joining us, and until our next conversation, remember to count your pleasures.